Thank you for tuning into the Short Stacks. I'm Lisa Quintero, Young Adult Librarian.
And I'm Nick Barron, patron and sometimes volunteer.
This is our first show of 2021, and this is a show where we talk to you about what we've been reading, listening to, or watching. But first,
library news.
So we've got quite a few different things coming up. We officially started our Read Woke Challenge on January 4th, and I talked about that on our last episode a bit. You can register for the Read Woke Challenge at shorewoodlibrary.org on our website, and if you go to the Explore tab, Read Woke is on the list there, and you can just click on it, and it'll take you to a website or one of our pages that has a bunch of book lists, recommended book lists. You don't have to read the books off of those lists. You can read anything that fits into the category that you are choosing to read. There are 10 total categories that you can read from, and you have 8 months to complete the program since it goes until August 31st of 2021. So be sure to sign up for that. We also have a few different things coming up. So next week on Tuesday, Miss Heidi will be doing a rhyme time on the 12th at 9 a.m. online. And we have Art to go as normal on Wednesday, the 13th and the 20th. We also have a family fun night to go bag on the 19th. And the 19th is also the first of the Reggie Jackson Do Black Lives Matter programs, which I spoke about on the last episode as well. And you can register for those through our calendar at shorewoodlibrary.org. And it's a 4-part series, and I just actually registered for all 4 of them, and I'm excited to listen to Reggie talk about the history of Black folks in America. So the first one is going to be an introduction to the historical devaluation of Black lives on the 19th. And it's going to be over Zoom. We also have another online story time on Thursday, January. I'm already talking February. No, January 21st at 9 a.m. And on the 21st, we also have our AM book club with Miss Haley at 11 a.m. And that Friday, we will have another Grown Up Take and Make kit. I'm not exactly sure what the project is this month.
I looked.
I'm sure it'll be exciting. What is it?
It is a clay pinch pot. Pick up a kit to make a clay pinch pot, no kiln needed. And it immediately made me think about how when I was a young man, how in the 80s, instead of something like a clay pinch pot, which I don't know exactly what that is, I remember being, 8 years old or 10 years old and being taught how to make an ashtray. And it's like, and
with the rolled up clay and like the long little snake, and then you like snake it around.
And then you would turn up the sides, and then you put little divots so that you could put their cigarette in. And just
the 80s.
Yeah, just think about that for a second. A 10-year-old making an ashtray. So yeah, that was the first thing I thought of. I'm sure you're not making an ashtray. But I'm not sure exactly what the clay pinch pot is. Also, the other thing what were you gonna say?
I assume it would be just a pot that, you could either put trinkets in or maybe put a plant in. I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I wanted to mention is that all of the Zoom links are actually in the events. So yeah.
And the first Black Lives Matter session with Reggie Jackson has all 4 of the links. And so if you want to attend all 4 of the sessions, you have to register for each one of them separately. And that I think is the only calendar entry that has all 4 of the links. So you don't have to go looking for the other ones.
Very good.
Sorry, I interrupted you. What were you going to say? Something else about the links?
I was just going to say so that you can already, instead of having that panic moment where you're like, oh, I wanted to do this thing, but I don't know where the link is. The link is right on the calendar, right in the entry. Just click on the day and the event, and it's right there.
And I almost forgot, we have one other exciting bit of library news. The Friends of the Shore Public Library have agreed to fund some Wi-Fi hotspots for us to check out to patrons. And we will actually be rolling those out at the end of January at some point. So keep an eye out for those. They will allow you to have internet access at home. You'll be able to check them out for 3 weeks. And I will talk more about them on a future episode. But I am very, very excited because this is something that I have wanted us to do for a long time. So
very exciting stuff. Accessibility for everyone.
Yes, bridging the digital divide for all those folks who, have a lack of internet access this year because either they lost their jobs or just, internet's expensive. I mean, not everybody can afford it, but all right. So let's go.
Won't have to sit outside of Collectivo in your car trying to get internet access.
Yes, exactly. Or the library. Right
Yeah.
now we have occasionally people, and it's too cold, to sit outside the library right now and try to get our Wi-Fi. It's very frustrating. But yeah. All right. So let's move on to From the Stacks, which is going to be a little bit different today. Since it is January, Nick and I are going to be talking about our annual goals. So I will let you start, Nick.
Okay. So I conceived of wanting to talk about this because the library has a lot of different resources that are accessible to everyone that are trying to meet their New Year's resolutions. You normally think of New Year's resolutions and people, getting a membership at Outpost or the River West Co-op, or them getting a membership at a gym, and that's how they try to resolve their eating better and exercising more and all the things that we kind of think of as our New Year's resolutions. And so I wanted to think about the things that I wanted to accomplish this year and how the library could help.
Okay.
So some of the things that are on my list, I wanted to read at least 6 physical books this year.
Okay.
This past year, a lot of the books that we talked about, we listened to. And I think there is a definite, even though it's sometimes much slower for me to read physical books, especially because I get very distracted or sometimes get tired. There is there's something deliberate about reading a book as opposed to listening to a book and doing something else. And
Yeah,
so,
no, I feel like you can reflect more on I know when I read a physical book, I tend to take more time reflecting on the words and what is being said than when I'm listening to a book.
Yep. And so, like, something like when I read The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein a number of years ago, it was the type of thing where it was very dense, but at the same time, it was a page turner because I just wanted to know what happened next. And mind you, this is a political book, but at the same time, it was like it was just so riveting. And though I listened to No Is Not Enough from Naomi Klein this year, and it was a thing that I'm really glad that I listened to. It also was a thing that I did while like doing the dishes and things like that. And so I don't think that I absorbed as much of the information in No Is Not Enough as I did with The Shock Doctrine.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and I think like listening to a novel is different than listening to a political book, because with a novel, I'm just enjoying the experience. Whereas something like a book on politics, I want to walk away remembering that knowledge.
Yeah, and I feel the same way with the stuff that I read, and I tend to try to read physical books more for nonfiction, unless it's something that's more of like an entertainment nonfiction, like that book that I read or listened to this year, about the Tatamara, the Born to Run. That one, I listened to because I felt like it was something that didn't necessarily have information that I needed to remember. Whereas like physically read a book on the 7 principles of physics earlier this year because it was something that I was like, I actually want to learn these concepts and know them. And so, reading them, like, there have been studies that show that reading things kind of cements them in your brain, or writing things down also cements them in your brain. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so my reading goal. So actually, this year I'm not setting a ton of goals for myself. Normally I set a bunch of goals for myself every year at the beginning of the year in January. And in 2020 I did that. And 2020 turned out to be this thing that we all survived.
It was a very unpredictable year.
Very unpredictable year. And so most of my goals for 2020 didn't get accomplished. And since we're still in the middle of all of this, I decided not to set any like hard concrete goals for myself really this year, other than my reading goal. Every year I set the reading goal of reading at least 52 books. So that is 1 book per week. And last year I came so close. I read 51. So hopefully this year I will make it to 52. And I've already read my first book for my goals. And I have also signed up for the Read Woke Challenge as part of my reading goals, because I would like to read more voices other than the ones that I normally read. And so I'm looking forward to venturing off into some stuff that I might not normally pick up. So I'm excited about that. So what's next on your list of goals, Nick?
We actually going back to physical books. I figured I don't know if you want the world to know, but we are Lisa and I are currently alternating chapters reading Little Women, and this has like at first the first chapter that I read aloud, I got kind of frustrated because I was stumbling over the language because the language is a little archaic. But I'm actually kind of excited to read the next chapter because I'd like to get better with adapting to the flow and cadence of different time periods because I think it'll make my writing better. And so that was something that even though that didn't fall under necessarily the read at least 6 physical books, it is actually reading 6 physical books, even if I'm only reading half of it, if we're alternating chapters. But still, I still think that it's a kind of an interesting exercise, and I'm kind of excited to continue with it.
What
were you gonna say?
I was just agreeing. I was going to spoil one of our next episodes, but I'll let people wait and see what we do with that Little Woman reading.
Yeah. And so and that ties into working on work-life balance. And so one of the things, like when I was a retail manager, everything was nights and weekends, and I couldn't, seem to attain that work-life balance. And then I left retail management and am focusing on starting my own business. And once again, like even though I don't have the stress and I enjoy the work I do so much more, at the same time I find myself not necessarily prioritizing everything in my life in a balanced way, because it's like, oh, I gotta do this thing to make this business successful. And so I don't have anything written down as to any of the resources at the library that I'm going to use, but something like reading aloud to each other, I think kind of falls under the work-life balance. Making time. Is there anything that what's next on your list?
So the next thing on my list is actually a general goal about creativity. And so I actually started off this year. There's a woman that I follow on Twitter and Instagram named Shannon Downey, and she started this challenge called the Make Don't Break Challenge because she was a professor at Columbia University in Chicago or Columbia College in Chicago, and she is a fiber artist, and so she has, as the coronavirus hit, she was in the process of resigning from her job because she was going to go on this tour around the country to promote this project that she was involved with called Rita's Quilt. And, coronavirus hit and she wasn't able to do any of this stuff, but she found that over the months that, people that she knew that were making things were more mentally stable than, people that she knew that weren't, because it gives, a creative outlet kind of keeps you centered and grounded sometimes. And so So I signed up for her challenge for January, which is it's called the Make Don't Break Challenge. And I've been doing some drawing because I started taking some drawing lessons at the beginning of 2020. And I've been doing some sewing and doing a bunch of different, I have a lot of different hobbies. I knit, I crochet, I'm really into creative work. And so I am excited about pursuing a lot of my creative pursuits this year in order to stay sane, basically. And I've actually been using the library for this. So I checked out a few books. One book that you've seen me drawing from the last few weeks for some of because every day you're supposed to post something for the Make Don't Break Challenge. And so I've been doing a lot of pencil sketches. Nick actually bought me some graphite pencils for the holidays. And so I checked out a book called 101 Textures in Graphite Pencil. And then I've also checked out one called 101 Textures in Colored Pencil, because I've done colored pencil work before, but hadn't really done a lot of graphite pencil. And I also checked out some books on how to draw and paint in pastels, because that's what I've been doing in my art class. And, looking to use these books to further my creative pursuits. I also checked out a knitting book because I really want to make myself a poncho, because it's often cold in the library and it's often cold at home in the winter. And I ended up buying myself a poncho, even though I know how to knit and could easily make myself one earlier this year. So I have one here at the library, but I want to make one, so I have one at home as well.
That's
pretty much.
That's not a good selling point for the library. The library is frequently cold.
Yeah, well, right now there's no bodies in the building. It's just us. And we have the door open because we're doing curbside. And so we got, our circulation team and sometimes us librarians are running in and out delivering stuff to people's cars or to the lobby. And so it's just always freezing in here.
Yep. Which I actually,
you know me, I get cold in August.
Yeah, this is true. But I will probably also, even though I didn't write it down on my list, one of the things that I actually wrote down on a different list is that I've been trying to work on my own drawing and also the nerdy pursuit of dungeon cartography. And I've been putting a lot of energy into that. And I think that textures book would be a really good book for me to, the projects in that drawing book would be a good thing for me to mess with. Because
yeah, you've seen it. It's like I got to do rusted steel. I've done an animal eye. I've done a human eye. I've done some human lips, and just all the different little textures that you can put into these things with using a variety of pencils. It's pretty amazing.
No, it's and I like the way that it breaks it down into stages. I think it's a cool book. Highly recommend.
Yeah, so that one is 101 textures in graphite and charcoal.
So the next thing on my list, so I have dabbled with learning Spanish on and off for years. And one of the things that I find, like, I took a Milwaukee Rec Department class a few years ago to try and learn conversational Spanish. And one of the things that I've reflected on in the last few years is that a lot of times I have to, like, you will say something in Spanish. Lisa is fluent in Spanish.
It was the first language I learned.
Yes. So Lisa is fluent in Spanish, and she will say something to me in Spanish, and I can't pick out, like, I can't visualize the word. So sometimes she will say a word, and I will ask her to spell it because of the fact that I can't pick out the nuances of the sounds. This is largely probably because of playing in bands for 20 years and just absolutely destroying my hearing. But so I've been trying to think of strategies for learning Spanish. And one of the things that I did a quick look to see if there was anything. I typed into Google, learn basic written Spanish, and came across Spanish Short Stories for Beginners by Mariana Ferrer. And it basically is a book of short stories, but it breaks them down. The idea is to teach people to be able to learn words by context of the words around them. And it also puts words and explanations of things in parentheses throughout the stories to help you learn as you read. And so I don't know if this is going to be the magic bullet, but I think being able to read something without necessarily having to have Lisa break it down for me, have somebody else be breaking it down for me as I'm reading it, might be a really useful tool for me to be able to expand my Spanish vocabulary.
Yeah. It's interesting because as somebody who learned, both Spanish and English kind of simultaneously, because my parents spoke to us in Spanish, and then we lived with my grandmother who only speaks English. And so, she would speak to us in English. I don't remember learning language. And then, as I got older, when I took French in middle school and high school, it just came easy. And I think it's just because my brain was wired differently from being multilingual from when I was tiny, so sometimes it's hard for me to, when you explain how you have to visualize words or things like that, sometimes it's hard for me because that's not how I process language. But we each learn differently and stuff, but I wonder if that has to do with the fact that I learned kind of 2 languages at once. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it probably has to do with that, but also, once again, the fact that my ears just can't pick out the nuances.
The sounds, because of your hearing.
Sounds. Yeah. So my own fault. In the 80s, we didn't wear earplugs.
Yeah.
And so I still often don't wear earplugs.
And then once
kids wear earplugs.
Wear earplugs, yeah, for sure. I know my hearing is starting to go nut, and we both watch TV and stuff. I've started watching TV with you with subtitles, but now I find that I actually need the subtitles more than I used to because my hearing also is starting to go from not wearing earplugs at loud rock concerts. But yeah, and then once you get with your short stories and stuff, you can also always use Mango or some of the apps that we offer through the library for continuing to improve your speaking and pronunciation as well.
Yeah, which I'm going to look up which episode we talked about that. So while I'm looking that up, you can tell us about your next thing on your list.
So yeah, my next general goal is a fitness one. So every year I try to do some stuff for fitness, and in 2020 that kind of fell apart because normally I belong to a gym, and normally I do things that like classes and stuff because I have problems motivating myself to do things on my own. And so one of my goals that I started at the end of 2020 was to motivate myself to do more things on my own. And so Nick has been joining in on a few of the things, and that has helped kind of keep this going. But I've been waking up early every morning and trying to either have like a cardio day or like a yoga day. And so I alternate. And because I'm not going to classes because they're not being offered right now, or the ones that are, are via Zoom, and it just doesn't feel the same. I've been checking out a lot of DVDs from the library. So I checked out a yoga DVD or a couple yoga DVDs, and we've been doing yoga with the DVDs. And then I also recently checked out and ended up buying for myself this Aerobarre video, which is a combination of boxing and barre, which is like a ballet it's like a workout that incorporates ballet and Pilates. And I had been taking barre classes at DanceWorks in Milwaukee a couple years ago before I had an injury. And so I was like, "Ooh, this sounds interesting." And I brought it home, and man, is it a workout. And Nick was like hesitant about it because I think he was like, ballet? What are you
let me break it down from my perspective.
Okay.
So Lisa brings home this DVD and says, "This is something that I want us to try." And I look at it, and it says it's a mix of ballet and boxing. It doesn't say Pilates. It's ballet and boxing. And I'm like, I don't know about this. And so we put it on, and it has this painfully long intro.
The intro is very long.
And we get through the intro, and I'm like, okay, what can we expect from this? What can we expect from this? And we got through, so it's broken into,
I think it's 11 rounds.
Was it 11 rounds? I thought it was 12 rounds.
I think it's 11 rounds.
Okay. It's broken into 11 or 12 rounds. And you start off with, like learning your southpaw stance versus whatever the other stance is, which are boxing stances.
And you learn how to like dodge punches, and you learn how to do a like straight punch versus an uppercut.
Yeah. And so you're doing these boxing moves, and then it also is teaching you like how to like stand up on your toes.
Yeah, because you're learning like first position and second position from ballet.
Yes. And so I'm like, okay, I can feel this. I'm feeling this in my body. And then you're doing squats while standing on your toes, and then rotate, like moving from like leg to leg. And my God, what a workout! And so this most of the yoga DVDs, the sessions are about 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And the 11 or 12 rounds it's a 50-minute DVD. And we have not made it all the way through all 50 minutes yet.
Yeah, no, we've only done about half of it in each session that we've done. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the last time we went through all of the rounds without skipping anything.
Yeah.
But we also did, like, there were points where we just like sat down, got a glass of water, like, because, and this is a workout that you will feel for days after. And so, yeah,
unless you're in really good shape, maybe if you're a boxer or like that ballerina who's teaching us, I mean, the muscles on her, man, like.
Yeah. But so long story short, we think of, sometimes we shortchange these, workout DVDs. But if you actually, put the time in and follow some of these, they can give you an exceptional workout. So Aerobarre, you get 2 thumbs up from me. Even though I thought you were really weird at first.
Like I said, I ended up buying a copy for us because I was like, I want to have this, and it's really good. But yeah, and then also I've been doing a lot of dance because, like I said, I took a lot of dance classes before I had this injury, and I've been doing a lot of dance videos through YouTube. And so I decided to start checking some dance videos out from the library, because of the thing that's frustrating about YouTube when you're doing the dance videos, because I've done some Zumba and some like Bollywood dancing and some various ones, is that like halfway through the workout, you get these ads, and so your workout is interrupted, and it's just annoying. So yeah, I actually requested a Bollywood dance video and a Zumba one to try out, because I'm sick of ads on YouTube. So that's basically what I'm doing with my fitness stuff. Eventually I'd like to go back to classes, because I like the interactiveness of them, and I like, I feel more motivated in them. But I feel pretty good so far. Like, we've been doing this since like the beginning of December, and I feel like, we've been doing well with it, and hopefully we can stick with it.
Yeah, no, I've been enjoying it. So, so going back to learning basic written Spanish, episode 7 was where we talked about world languages at the library. So I highly recommend that if you want to know more about the resources available for learning different languages, go back and check out episode 7. So the next thing on my list was eating better. And so the joint holiday gift that Lisa got us was a combination air fryer, and
I got us an Instapot. That's also a fryer. So you can do pressure cooking, you can do air frying, you can do all sorts of things, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah. So I have not used it yet, and so I need to learn how to use it. But one of the things, eating better, I have 2 problems in life. One is that if I'm in a hurry, I will default to either just eating chocolate or eating out. And sometimes combining both into the same thing, oftentimes. So, at various points, we've done things like a sugar cleanse, or done this or done that. And I always default. There's a couple of things that I want to do this year. Like, I'm going to teach myself how to make my own granola.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I know, like a couple years ago when we first were doing, or not first, but we were doing a lot more slow cooker recipes during the winter, because we wanted more soups and stuff like that. I checked out a cookbook from the library on the vegan slow cooker, but Instapot just makes everything so much faster. It's like I make, some black beans in 20 minutes. It's amazing, without having like soaked them overnight, or like, whereas before I used to soak them overnight and then put them in the slow cooker, and then they cooked in the slow cooker all day while I was at work. And then I got home, and then we could eat them. But now it's like 20 minutes, they're done.
Yep, for sure.
Yep. Yeah, I'd also like to eat healthier. So yeah, I've also been interested in learning more about the air frying portion of it. That's, we both love our fried foods. I am a big French fry person, and
you love your tan foods.
I do love my tan foods, fries, fake chicken nuggets, anything that is tan. Macaroni and cheese.
Yep.
But yeah, so I figured an air fryer, you still use maybe a little bit of oil, but it's not as bad as deep frying everything. So we'll see how it turns out, and hopefully this helps us both out in terms of eating healthier. And I'm excited to check out some cookbooks and get some more recipes from the library as well as online to do that.
Sure. I still have one more thing on my list. Do you have anything else on your list?
I think that was everything on my list. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the last thing, I talk a lot about gaming, at least in asides in various episodes. And one of the things that I think people would be surprised to know is that I do not play the current edition of Dungeons and Dragons, D&D 5e. We dabbled with it probably about 5 years ago, and I haven't touched it since.
It was longer because it was when we played with our friends in Chicago. So that would have been we've been here for 6 years.
Remember, I tried running it right when we moved here.
Oh yeah, you did. That's right. Okay, never mind. So that would have been like 6 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, so I started to learn 5e, and then I got frustrated with it because it wasn't the D&D that I remember. I learned how to play D&D in the 80s and played through the 80s and into the early 90s. And so I ended up, dabbling with other systems and found a system called Dungeon Crawl Classics. And somehow I got tapped to work on a project that involves 5e. And so one of the things that I am going to be playing with a group starting in about 2 weeks, playing 5e, and then I got tapped for this project, and so it should be a reminder that both for adults and teens, there are all of the core rule books for Dungeons and Dragons 5e at the Shorewood Public Library. And so I will be taking out the monster manual because I need to brush up on how the formatting and all that is done for the 5e monsters so that I can then convert them to Dungeon Crawl Classics, because it's going to be a project that I'm going to be working on. So
very good.
So yeah. The library, it's got so much stuff. Who knew?
Yeah, lots of stuff to help you out with whatever your goals are, or if you're like me and you don't have any concrete goals, but just some general things that you're like, I want to be better at this. You can find resources here, whether you're like Nick and you've got structure to your goals, or whether you're just like, all right, what can I potentially accomplish this year?
He said that with such sadness. What can I possibly accomplish this year? Little Eeyore action.
Yeah, well, 2020 was rough.
Yeah.
So we'll see what 2021 brings. It hasn't been off to the greatest start.
Yes, but if we go into it with that positive New Year's resolution kind of mentality, we can take on this year and come away better for it. So
yeah, no, for sure.
That's my take.
Yeah, no, and I mean, obviously, I'm doing some stuff. I'm like that's part of why I signed up for the Make Don't Break challenge, because it's the whole month of January, and I'm like, all right, if I can do a whole month of creating stuff every day, that should keep me going forward throughout the rest of the year. I don't think I'll make it the whole year making something every day, but it'll hopefully get me into a habit of going to my spaces where I work on stuff, and getting into the habit of just setting aside time, just like you talked about. It's kind of like a work-life balance thing, making sure that that I create time, because one thing that I struggle with is I feel like I have pretty good work-life balance, but one thing I struggle with sometimes in my life balance is setting aside time for myself, because you and I do a lot of stuff together, or I do a lot of stuff socially before coronavirus, or even now with coronavirus. I do a lot of online gaming, or we do trivia online, or I'm always setting aside time for other people, and I don't often set aside time for myself. So one thing that I want to be better about in 2021 and going into this new decade is making sure I set aside time for myself, because this last year really taught me that I need to do that in order to recharge, because with all the stress and everything, my batteries have just been drained. And I've found that the more I set aside some time for myself, either whether it's to read or to work on whatever it is that I want to work on, that where I'm not beholden to anybody else for anything during that time, is important. So
yeah, for sure. All right, it looks to me like we've gone way over time. So we should wrap this up. Is there any note that you want to end on?
No, I guess I'm just curious if anybody has any goals of their own that they'd like to share with us. Feel free to email us at theshorewoodstacks@gmail.com or contact us via our social media channels. We are on Facebook and Twitter. And yeah, just look forward to continuing to share our library knowledge with you this year, and we will catch you on the next podcast. So until next time, thanks for listening and be well. The Shorewood Stacks was produced by Lisa Quintero and Nick Barron for the Shorewood Public Library. Music for this episode is by Kevin MacLeod and is called Ice Flow and can be found at incompetech.com.